In a quiet apartment in Paris, where the light falls softly through thin curtains and the walls are lined with the black and white drawings that once told the story of a girl growing up in a revolution, a woman who became the voice of a generation, the voice of exile, the voice of freedom, and the voice of a country that no longer exists for her, has finally stopped speaking. Marjane Satrapi, the Iranian-French graphic novelist, cartoonist, filmmaker, and author of the groundbreaking autobiographical memoir Persepolis, has died at the age of 56, her family announcing that she passed away on June 4, 2026, after succumbing to what they call sadness, a poetic, heartbreaking phrase that describes how grief, after the loss of the love of her life, overwhelmed a woman who had spent her entire life telling stories about the cost of living under oppression, about the pain of exile, about the heavy weight of carrying a home that no longer exists. Her death was confirmed by the office of French President Emmanuel Macron, who described her as a leading figure in French culture and a freedom-loving artist whose work carried a universal message and earned her immense international acclaim. A tribute that speaks to the way her art crossed borders, languages, and generations, touching people who had never been to Iran, who had never known the sound of the revolution, who had never felt the weight of a regime that tried to silence her, but who understood the feeling of being alone in a world that does not understand you, of being told who you should be, what you should wear, what you should think, what you should believe. Marjane Satrapi was born on November 22, 1969, in Rasht, a city in northern Iran, but she grew up in Tehran, the capital, where her family was educated, intellectual, and deeply connected to the country's history, her grandfather having been a prince who also served as the Iranian prime minister, a man who was imprisoned while raising his children and whose stories of hardship, resilience, and dignity became a part of the foundation on which Marjane built her own life, her own work, her own voice. Her mother was a progressive, intellectual, compassionate woman who placed a huge emphasis on education, who nurtured Marjane's budding interest in politics and philosophy, who told her that the most important thing she could have was knowledge, that the most important thing she could be was free, that the most important thing she could do was to speak the truth, even when the truth was dangerous, even when the truth was painful, even when the truth could cost her everything. Marjane was sent to a bilingual French school at a young age, where she learned the language of her adoptive country, the language that would later become the language of her art, the language in which she would tell her story to the world, the language that would become her home when Iran became a place she could no longer return to. Her story, the story that would become Persepolis, began when she was a child, when she was 10 years old, when the Islamic Revolution was happening in the streets, when the Shah was fleeing, when the Ayatollahs were taking power, when the world was changing in ways that no one could predict, when the country she loved was becoming a place that she no longer recognized, when the people she knew were becoming strangers, when the life she had known was being erased, piece by piece, law by law, story by story, memory by memory. She was sent to Austria at the age of 14, a decision made by her parents, a decision that would save her life, but that would also break her heart, a decision that would make her an exile, a decision that would make her a stranger in a foreign land, a decision that would make her a girl who was too Iranian for Austria and too Austrian for Iran, a decision that would make her a woman who would spend the rest of her life searching for a place to belong, a place to call home, a place where she could be herself without fear, without shame, without the weight of a history that was always pressing down on her. She returned to Iran in her early 20s, but she could never truly go home, and she left again, this time for good, this time for France, this time for a country that would become her home, that would become the place where she would live, where she would work, where she would create, where she would find a voice that would carry across the world, that would reach millions of people, that would change the way people thought about Iran, about the Islamic Revolution, about exile, about identity, about the cost of living under a regime that tries to control your body, your mind, your soul. She met her first husband, Reza, an Iranian veteran, in 1989, and they were married until 1994, but the marriage ended in divorce, And it was not until she met Mattias Ripa, a Swedish film producer, actor, screenwriter, and financier, that she found the love of her life. The person who would stand beside her for over 3 decades. The person who would become her partner in life, in art, in everything. Mattias Ripa was born in Sweden in 1972, and he was everything Marjane needed. Everything she wanted, everything she had ever dreamed of. A man who understood her art, who understood her work, who understood her pain, who understood her history, who understood her exile, who understood her grief, who understood her, who loved her, who would never leave her, who would never stop loving her, who would never stop being there for her, until the very end. They were married for 31 years, a marriage that lasted for 3 decades, a marriage that was the foundation of her life, the foundation of her work, the foundation of her happiness, the foundation of her hope, the foundation of her belief that love could survive anything, that love could survive war, that love could survive exile, that love could survive death, that love could survive everything. But then, in April 2025, just over a year before her own death, Mattias passed away at the age of 53, and Marjane lost the love of her life, the person she loved more than anything, the person she loved more than her art, more than her work, more than her freedom, more than her life, and she never recovered, never regained her strength, never regained her hope, never regained her will to live. Persepolis, her breakthrough autobiographical graphic novel, was published between 2000 and 2003, a black-and-white story that told the story of her childhood in Iran during the Islamic Revolution, of her immigration to Europe at age 14, of her struggle to find her identity, of her struggle to find her voice, of her struggle to find her home, of her struggle to find herself. A story that became one of the most important graphic novels of the 21st century, a story that was adapted into an Oscar-nominated animated film in 2007, which she co-directed, a film that received critical acclaim and brought international attention to her story, a film that made her a household name, a film that made her a voice for the Iranian diaspora, a film that made her a voice for women's rights, a film that made her a voice for freedom, a film that made her a voice for anyone who had ever been told who they should be, what they should wear, what they should think, what they should believe. She went on to create other works, including Chicken with Plums, a film she co-directed in 2011, based on her graphic novel of the same name, and The Voices, a darker film in which she appeared as an actress in 2014. But none of these works ever reached the impact of Persepolis. None of them ever carried the same weight. None of them ever felt as real, as honest, as true, as the story of a girl who was growing up in a country that was changing around her, a country that was becoming a place that she could no longer recognize, a country that was becoming a place that she could no longer call home. She was a vocal critic of Iran's theocratic government, and she used her art as a form of political and social commentary, as a way to tell the truth, as a way to speak for those who could not speak, as a way to give a voice to the voiceless, as a way to remind the world that Iran was not just a country of oppression, of violence, of religion, of politics, but a country of people, of stories, of art, of culture, of love, of life, of hope, of dreams, of the human experience. Her net worth at the time of her death was estimated to be around $12 to $15 million, a figure that reflected her career as a graphic novelist, as a filmmaker, as an author, as an artist, as a speaker, as an activist. But the number never mattered to her, never defined her, never measured what she was doing, never measured what she believed in, never measured the life she was living, the family she was building, the legacy she was creating, the impact she was having on the world, on the people, on the culture, on the art, on the stories, on the voices, on the lives that she touched, that she changed, that she saved. Her lifestyle was one of quiet artistic dedication, of a woman who divided her time between Paris and Sweden, who lived a relatively private life despite her fame, who focused on her art, her writing, and her family rather than public spectacle, who was known for her black and white aesthetic, her straightforward storytelling, and her uncompromising honesty about her experiences, about her life, about her truth. Her family announced that she died of sadness, a phrase that is both poetic and devastating, a phrase that captures the depth of her grief, the weight of her loss, the cost of her love, the price of her life. A phrase that reminds us that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is not a regime, not a war, not a prison, not a death, but grief. Grief that is too deep, grief that is too heavy, grief that is too much to carry. Grief that steals your will to live, grief that steals your will to create, grief that steals your will to be, grief that steals your life, grief that steals your soul, grief that steals your everything. If Marjane's story, the image of a woman who grew up in a revolution, who became an exile, who found her voice, who told her story, who changed the world, who loved so deeply that when she lost the love of her life, she lost her will to live, who died of sadness, who died of grief, who died of love, moved you, then please consider giving this video a like and sharing it with someone who might need a reminder that the most important things in life are not what you own, not what you achieve, not what you create, but who you love, how much you love, how deeply you love, how much your love matters, how much your love changes the world, how much your love changes lives, how much your love changes everything. If you want to stay connected to stories like this one, stories of people who have left their lives behind in the quiet corners of the studio, the stage, the screen, the page, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new episode.